Imagine being able to visually communicate what you want from breast augmentation before surgery. What if a 3D tool could help guide that conversation so expectations are clear from the start? We're going to break it down full throttle next.
There's too much fear. We're here for the facts, bro.
This is not rumor or myth. This is the real deal.
You want the truth? We're bringing it to you right here on TBH.
Hello, Full Throttle Doc audience. Welcome to Media PSC Command Central in episode 6 of TBH Breast Implants. Right here on TBH, you'll get straight talk on real breast implant hot topics and trends. Today's episode is Try Before You Buy. Additionally, we'll continue our newest TBH segment, the Scrub Sink, and the great Dr. Jerry Chidester will be joining to provide some excellent insights on breast surgery in the social media era. With me is renowned plastic surgeon, educator, and innovator, Dr. Rohrich. Rod, this show is Try Before You Buy. And this has been really a theme for many years in plastic surgery. I was thinking back, I think it started with rhinoplasty and the simulators.
That's right.
Don't you think?
Absolutely. And now it's in breast surgery and everything else. I think that, along with social media, this is all incredibly hot topics. And it's real. It's what patients want to see.
Yep. So it's going to be great. And we have some great experts to really share some insights. Yep. So let's meet our first expert, the great Dr. Louis Strock.
TBH Breast Implants is excited to introduce a plastic surgeon who is Texas through and through. Born in Austin with a legacy in Fort Worth, he represents the highest standard in plastic surgery, while shaping the field far beyond the Lone Star State. After graduating from Amherst College, he earned his medical degree at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, where he completed general surgery and plastic surgery residencies. He later joined the faculty, training future plastic surgeons. He founded his practice in Fort Worth 30 years ago and is nationally recognized as a leading authority in cosmetic breast surgery. He's known for pioneering transaxillary endoscopic breast augmentation, a technique that allows breast implants to be placed with no incisions on the breast.
We have the medical side and the marketing side.
A fellow of the American College of Surgeons and recipient of the Certificate of Advanced Education in Cosmetic Surgery from the Aesthetic Society, he's a frequent national speaker, traveling professor, and educator. His work has been featured on leading national talk shows and in medical and consumer publications. Voted a top doctor by his peers, including Fort Worth Magazine's Top Doctor and Texas Super Doctors, he continues to set the standard in breast surgery, education, and innovation. From Texas roots to global impact, let's welcome Dr. Louis Strock.
Louis, I knew you were great. I didn't know all that stuff. Incredible.
Oh, wow. I didn't either. Yeah, thank you. No, it's fun to join you guys as always. Not sure what happened a minute ago, but thank you.
It's actually true to your great personality, because you're such a humble guy. I've known you for many years, and you but you're incredibly talented, incredible educator. But you would never tell anybody that. But I'm telling everybody, Rod, don't you think?
I agree. I mean, he has set an incredible high standard of plastic surgery in Fort Worth and Dallas and beyond. I mean, it's great. I mean, it's a pleasure to have you as a colleague, Louis.
Oh, well, Thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you guys. Appreciate it.
Well, it's going to be great to get your insights, and there's going to be some really, really good topics we're talking about today, so I'm looking forward to it. All right, well, let's meet our second expert, the talented Dr. Rob Cohen.
TBH is proud to introduce an internationally recognized educator and surgeon whose results stand shoulder to shoulder with the very best in aesthetic plastic surgery. His journey began at Tulane University School of Medicine, where he graduated with top honors and published extensively, including research in plastic and reconstructive surgery, the flagship journal of the American Society of Plastic Surgeons. He earned a coveted spot at Dartmouth University's plastic surgery program, serving as chief resident and traveling to North Vietnam on a medical mission, repairing cleft lip and palate deformities in children. After a prestigious aesthetic surgery fellowship with Dr. Grant Stevens in Los Angeles, he built a thriving private practice, first in Scottsdale, Arizona, and today in Beverly Hills, California, where one philosophy guides everything he does: safety and quality above all else. A leader in aesthetic breast and body surgery, he's known for standout results, peer-voted awards, and more than 100 journal publications and presentations, along with textbook chapters and international lectures. And beyond the accolades, patients value his warm, approachable style and personal commitment to their care. In his world, excellence isn't optional, it's expected. Let's welcome Dr. Robert Cohen.
Rob,
hi, Bill.
Welcome.
Hey, Rod.
Incredible stuff. It's like, I guess after building a great practice in Scottsdale, it wasn't challenging enough. So then now you built one in Beverly Hills too, right?
Yeah, I kind of missed the beautiful weather here, so got back to LA again.
Yeah. Well, that's great stuff, Rob. It's funny. I was thinking I knew you were going to be joining us. I've known Rob a long time, but actually, Rod, I met him kind of first, like really, one of the things I really admire you for, Rob, is just you're a great educator. And the first time I went to a meeting to educate with Rob, it was actually this meeting in St. Petersburg, Russia. And it was the great Vitaly Zoltakov's meeting, and I think it was 2018 or 16, somewhere in there.
16.
Yeah, and so.
It was right before the election.
It was so funny because, first of all, I didn't even know who was going. And all, the liaison, Vitaly, said, she's like, You will meet at 6. You get there at 6 p.m. for the show. I'm like, well, what show is this? Like, what is it? Just meet at 6 p.m. and you'll see. And so I show up, and all of a sudden there's Rob and Frank Lista and Del Vecchio, and it was great. So it was a great meeting, and I saw 3 days of presentations by Rob, and it's like, man, what an incredible educator he is. But the funny thing was, Rob, you were smart. Like, you knew the minute Del Vecchio showed up, and like Malucci and Lista and me, and you were like, Rob, steer clear of us most of the time, except for the education.
What kind of trouble can you get to in Russia? What's the worst that could happen?
That's right.
You wanted to make sure you got back home. I know.
That's right.
I was trying not to get in jail somewhere in Russia. That seems like a good plan for me.
Great stuff. Well, thanks for joining, and it's going to be great. So let's get on our show. But first, thanks to all our sponsors. We couldn't do it without them. A double shout out to Allergan, who stepped up and led the way to make TBH breast implants possible. Okay, BJ, let's get to the show. Here we go with some full throttle edutainment. But before we go full throttle, we want to hear from you. Make sure to subscribe to TBH below and send your questions to us that you want to hear discussed. You can do it at the Plastic Surgery channel on our YouTube page or at Hey Doc TBH on our X page. So let's get to the first case of the day. And this case is sponsored by our friends at Mentor, who have led the way in aesthetic and reconstructive breast surgery for 60 years and help support TBH in real conversations on breast implants here today. All right, so we entitled this, Rod, Try Before You Buy. And the premise for this, Lewis and Rob, is that there's several new things that are out. There's some different simulators and patient education tools. So what I want to do is walk through the 4 companies just to kind of give like an introduction, and then we want to get you guys insights in it. Now, actually, Mentor has had several things that are available. They've had a patient simulator on their website that's still available. They also have a branded application people can use in their practices, but they just launched their new Mentor Arbrea, which is basically a 3D augmented reality consultation tool, but it's for patients' benefit, but it's for surgeons to use with patients. And You can see in this video just some screenshots of this, but it's a fairly robust simulating tool where you can simulate any Mentor's line of implants on patients. I think you take 3 simple pictures, and it has some really interesting functionality. But it's, again, a communication tool and a consultation tool that surgeons can use with patients. And we can talk more about this as we get into the discussion. Allergan has the Natrel line of breast implants. They have the Natrel breast visualizer. This is on their website. Patients can take a short picture and then use that to simulate Allergan breast implants directly through the website. And it's really for patients. This is for patients really before they see a surgeon to see if they have further interest. Sientra does not have application or a simulator tool, but they provide a bunch of educational resources to patients, not only brochures and implant information, but also things like decision checklists and things like that. Motiva has what they call Motiva Joy, which is a web-based, it's really a patient-focused program where it includes educational tools, what they call inspiration galleries or lookup boards where people can look at patients maybe that have a similar physique to them and see results. So it's really for patients and web-based. So the last thing I just thought I'd mention just briefly is that there are some at-home kits that are available to the patients. These are, again, like sizers that people put in bras, and we can certainly talk about that. But Lewis and Rob, this is, I think for the beginning of the discussion, really want to Lewis, I'm going to start with you. It's like, how do these aids fit into the big picture? Before the consult, during the consult, after the consult, what are the pros and cons? What's your overall kind of assessment of these different things, and just share some insights?
Sure. So, I think that in the current age and start of 2026, each of us as plastic surgeons that do a lot of aesthetic breast surgery need to be comfortable with many of these modalities, whether it's a simulator at home that patients may use and bring in, or 3D simulators in the practice. At the end of the day, a major impediment for patients that keeps them from having breast implants is a lack of clarity of what you're going to look like. And so these technologies are critically important to help navigate the impediments that people think about before they have breast augmentation. So they've added a great deal to the practice, but I think they're in the context of a guided discussion in the context of a patient's body type and tissues, et cetera, to individualize the plan for each patient. But I do think the technology is very helpful.
Rob, what's your assessment of kind of these different tools that patients are using? And like I say, Arbrea is really more also a surgeon tool, but what are your thoughts about this?
I mean, I think there's definitely some use for it for certain surgeons. I've never used a 3D imaging system. There's a couple of reasons why. Number one, I think it's limited, and at least maybe I haven't seen some of the latest innovations, but it was really great if you just have a flat-chested patient that you want to just see what they would look like with an augmentation. But the majority of my patients are coming in for corrective revisions or for augmastopexies or other things, and I don't think those simulations are very accurate at simulating what an augmastopexy, or when you throw like a ptosis into the mix, how that's going to get corrected. So I think it's more limited to, augmentation patients, or at least it had been in the past. Also, there's always that concern that patients come up with an image and they look at that image and they expect that image with that exact implant, and it may not match up exactly. And I personally like to have more creative license and wiggle room during surgery to make adjustments. I think one thing for me that makes it easier is I've always had my own operating room, so I have a full consignment, sizers, implants, whatever I need. So it does give me a little bit more leeway than maybe somebody who just has to order in a few boxes and bring them in the OR, where they may want to have a tighter range and have like a better sense of what it's going to look like before they get in the OR based on the imaging studies. And I think in general, those are the limitations. So I think it's just a tool to achieve the result you want. Personally, I find that, I start with base measurement. I use photos from my website as far as what their general goal look and size is. And I like to use in-bra sizers in the office. They can try them on with clothes or just with the bra on. I'll have them look from different angles. Once I put the sizers on them, I'll usually say once they hit to one that they like, okay, you can't have this sizer. You have to either go bigger or smaller. So then I know which way we're sort of leaning during surgery if they're more worried about being too large or too small. What I do disagree with completely are the surgeons who take like a regular round implant, stick it in a bra on top of somebody's breast to try to figure out size. That looks terrible, and you're going to scare patients away if you do that. So you need the anatomically shaped sizers with kind of the scooped out inside that you can place over the breast, which really will accurately simulate, for the most part, what like a moderate profile implant would look like. So I think those are very useful during surgical consultations. Not only that, but patients really get excited when they see them in real time in the mirror, maybe even more so than they would on a computer screen.
Do either of you all think that is there any downside? Is there a con to these things? Are there problems that you've seen or that you could foresee happens? Rob, you're kind of skirting around that a little bit, because you're kind of saying you want to do things.
You could potentially give false expectations. If somebody has a picture, it's like anything, like you bring in a picture and this is what it says I'm going to look like. They don't look just like that, then they might be upset or disappointed. So they need to understand that whatever is going to end up as their final result after surgery won't necessarily match exactly to the pictures that the computer spit out.
So can I get you guys, so basically it sounds, Bill, like neither one use simulators or imaging for their surgery. And I think it's the big thing, like I think you've talked about a lot, Bill, is everybody, you got to get the patient on the same page, whether it's for the nose, the breast, and the face. So it sounds like neither one of you use imaging routinely. Is that true? I just want to clarify that for our viewers.
Sure.
Because I know you guys are kind of hedging a little bit, and then Bill's going to tell us what he does.
So I'd say a couple of things. I think the world, this panel, it's always a little tricky to disagree, but it makes it more fun. So I do use it routinely in my practice, but I think with expectations is very important how it's framed in the conversation with the patient. So say, hey, this is a concept of what you might look like. And actually in my hands, the low augmentation of the patient that is coming in for a primary augpexy is, for me, the patient for whom imaging is most helpful, because usually we can give them a fairly clear idea of what the creation of breast height looks like. And for me, I didn't expect that when I got into using imaging 15 years ago or so. And that was sort of a surprise destination for me in my practice. So I do use it, carefully framed. This is a conceptual idea. It's an impressionist rendition of what we might end up looking like. And then we work through the other aspects of the process. I do like patients to try on implants or sizers type things to give us some feedback on projection they like, and to make sure that all of our discussion points are in sync with the story. So I do like it maybe more than I made it sound like.
But the way I see this, saying like you have most of the things that are out there are giving patients educational aids for them somehow to get a better idea, but at least with Sientra, Allergan, and Motiva, they're really for the patient. Right. Now Mentor has things for the patient, but also now they've just come out with Arbrea, which is for the surgeon. So there is slightly different approach. Like Arbrea is really to allow the surgeon to do a better consult. So it's almost like some of the patient web-based things are, just throwing a fish hook out a little bit, and patients may get interested in it. It creates awareness about the procedure, and then they may seek out a consult. Whereas I think that Arbrea is more geared towards trying to help surgeons convert consults, which is it's just a little different in my mind. I don't know, Roger, what do you think?
No, I totally agree. I think the key is to get them on, everybody's got to get on the same page of what they want, and especially in breast augmentation, because last thing you want to do is have to repeat and, go up or down a size. So I agree. I think whatever works, there's no right or wrong answer. I use, the system that, Bill Adams and John Tebbets devised, along with the patients' favorite photos they bring in from anybody's website. And in the end, I decide in the operating room, like Rob said. But I think everybody has to be comfortable with, is this what the patient wants? And I think it's good to have the latitude. And I know, Bill, I'd like you to tell us how you choose your implants, because it's a little different than what these guys talked about.
Yeah, well, I've used Vectra for many years,
which is excellent,
and actually been, I think it's been a very effective, comprehensive consultation tool for me and my practice and my patients. But what I would say is that at the end of the day, it's about what works for you and whatever process you're using. Because
100%.
I remember, Rod, with Jack, the late great Jack Gunner, right? When I was first starting my residency, I saw Dr. Rohrich, as my chairman, and he was doing, 3D imaging with Photoshop. That's how it was done initially. But that was really high tech, and I thought it was cool. But Jack was doing just tracings. He would he didn't like the imaging,
Yes.
but he would do tracings over the actual picture and then pull off the tracing to show the patient what their profile would look like.
For
but
the
that
nose,
worked for him.
Yeah.
But so I think it's really surgeon and practice dependent. And
100%.
whatever works for you and allows you to communicate better with your patient, that's probably a good thing.
Right. That's full stop there. I agree.
I want to show you guys one other thing. This is a paper that was just published. I think the first author is just horrible, so just disregard that. But I actually had the opportunity to be part of this. Listen, I know that all plastic surgeons love to self-aggrandize. I didn't really pick this just so I could toot my own horn, but it just came out, and there's a bunch of people that did. But it was looking at drivers and barriers and breast augmentation, and I think it's a good overall study of some insights. The interesting thing is that it looked at basically 4 countries, and it sent out both qualitative and pretty detailed quantitative surveys to get the data. Some of the interesting learnings of this was that, basically the premise was, even though a lot of patients know about breast augmentation and they seek information on it, a very small percentage of those patients actually have the procedure. And so the question is, what's the drivers for people to have a procedure? In this study, the Net Promoter Score, which is like it's a way basically to see how popular a procedure or whatever it is with its constituents or patients, was 62. So that's actually really high Net Promoter Score, and it actually is the same as what Amazon has as a Net Promoter Score, and it's 1 point higher than Apple has. And so the procedure ranked very high. Yet the insight was that patients are also getting a lot of negative information now, especially with social media and in the digital arena, and that a lot of these things, some is true, but there's also a lot of misinformation. So the one thing I wanted to ask both you, Lewis, and Rob, is that came out of this study is that felt like practices, now it's even more important to basically share information, not only just about the procedure, but about everything, about these drivers and the things that people are learning online, and that some of these tools may help you educate patients better.
I think the more tools we have to educate patients, the better, because probably the most important part of our job is to be able to match someone's expectations to what we can do with clarity. And it takes a lot of different reframing or directions and conversationally to be able to do that. So the simulation tools like our Brea, which I'm early in my use of, but I like it so far. The pictures are very clear. I think it's gives a pretty good depiction of what a patient might look like with certain breast implants, are really helpful. But I also think that we have to be able to discuss these issues with patients in different ways depending on what resonates with them.
Rob, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of like what Rod was saying earlier. It's just about communicating. And, a patient will come in, their language is cup size. So they'll say, I want to be a C
Right.
cup. And then,
Yeah.
two patients could say a C cup, and then you see a picture of what they mean, and it can be absolutely different.
Yeah.
So you just need a visual image of what they're thinking. You need to know whether they're more worried about being too big, too small. And then you need to kind of figure out what's going to get them from point A to point B as best as possible, and what tools you use to do that communication. I think, as you said a few minutes ago, it's very on the surgeon and what their comfort level is and what they're used to. And I would say if you're a surgeon who's been doing it, like, for example, for me, I've been doing it this way for 20 years, and I've had very, very few patients who change sizes after the surgery. So it works for me. So I would stick with what I'm doing. But if you're a surgeon who is having a lot of reoperations because of, size miscommunications, then some of these new imaging tools might be really a helpful bridge to get past that. So you just have to figure out what works for you, what works with the patient, what resonates, and just do that. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do this. I think you just need to keep an open mind and whatever's helping you really understand the patient's image that they have in their brain.
All right, that's some great stuff. So now, guys, the way this is set up, we're going to go to what we call the sew it up. So let's go to our sew it up section. And as you might guess, this is where we're going to kind of sew up this topic. So Cam, we're going to go to question number 2. So this is where people submit questions to you guys. So this question is about, this is a great question, and actually you kind of brought it up, Lewis and Rob, but I knew this question was going to come because I'd seen it. It's about do patient-centered over the breast sizers, so like how many people put sizers in the breast, lead to overestimate or underestimate of surgical result? How do you counsel patients regarding their use? So I'd like both of you guys to, Lewis, you said you use this. I would say what I see, I think tons of people use that in their practice, putting implants in bras, and I have my own thoughts about it, but why don't you go, Lewis, just lead off.
So I really don't use it to pick an implant. I use it to help facilitate further the conversation to figure out what we're going to do. And there is an important distinction there. I'm not trying to talk in circles. So I may be, no, but anyway, I use it to help guide the next steps and really figuring out what will work. And then I'm very comfortable just telling them, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. And we'll change it to tissue-based planning. But to me, it's not to actually pick the implant. And I say the same thing with simulators. It's not to pick an implant. It's to show you an idea of what you might look like. And then we zero in on the nuances of one implant versus another, one projection to another, and all based on the width context of the patient's chest. So to me, it just helps facilitate more conversation.
Rob?
Well, again, I want to be specific because it sounded like we're talking about two different things. So we're talking about over the breast sizers intended for that purpose, not stuffing a round implant in somebody's bra. Okay, so if we're using in bra sizers, I feel like they're pretty accurate. Like there are times, I always have planned to go bigger or smaller to make sure the image of the patient likes kind of matches what they look like in the OR as well. But I think it's fairly accurate. If anything, more often than not, you may need to upsize a slight amount on the real implant relative to the in-bra sizer, especially if you're doing a dual plane approach, because you might get a little bit of soft tissue compression of the implant. But I would say in general, the implant I use in surgery is almost always within maybe 50 cc's of the in-bra sizer. Every rare time, once in a while, it's a little bit different. The tissues are particularly tight or loose, and so I think it gets you in the range. And then, like I said before, I usually find out whether the patient's more worried about being too large or too small. So if you're kind of in the range and they're worried about being too large, you just don't kind of lean towards that or slightly smaller version, and vice versa.
Yeah, to me, it's all about what the science is, and is it accurate? Are you it's already an abstract thing. And that's actually, I use Vectra because it's a validated tool. So scientifically, I think, at least from what I know, there's new things out there. I don't think they've probably been out there long enough for us to really know where they stand in this. But a lot of the different simulation tools aren't validated. So it's just like, it's like a video game. You're not really supplying people with real information. In the sizing of the bras, they're actually can bring up that paper, because we published a paper on this, and this again, I personally don't find the bra sizing with anything useful, because in this paper, like, we found that the bra sizing basically overestimated the volume by 25%, and it underestimated the distribution of fill in the lower part of the breast and overestimated distribution of fill in the upper part of the breast. So I just felt like, when we looked at it scientifically, that I was not providing patients with better information. Now, that being said, again, it's just like we were talking about these different tools. It depends how you're using it and how it fits into your process, right, Rod? I mean, I think that's, so I'm sure there's people that use putting implants in bras or more anatomic implants like you're talking about, Rod, and they find it very useful and it's helpful. So it just depends how you're using it and what works for you.
Right. I think what works for you, and of course the great debate was between David Hidalgo and Bill Adams about this whole topic. I mean, no one's wrong or right, but I think what works in your practice. And I think all the points you made, Ron, are very valid. And also, Lou, what you said is right. I mean, it's a tool. It's not the definitive tool of what you use to get to the patient and you being on the same page. And that's really the bottom line. And I think for people that are viewing this episode, they need to understand that there's no right or wrong way to say, oh yeah, you have to use Sizers or you have to use Vectra. You have to go to a surgeon that has the experience and expertise that you trust will give you the result that you want and desire. That's really the bottom line. Don't you guys agree?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just the final point, or at least another point I just want to make is I do think it's important to have multiple ways of assessing it all at the same time. So I wouldn't totally depend on the imaging or totally depend on the in-bra sizers. I think you have multiple ways of, discussion with the patient, photos, measurements, sizers, all that kind of stuff. And then you collate all that information into one final product, or one final result that you're able to achieve and that fits the patient's, obviously, tissues. Because another thing I always tell patients is I can stick any size sizer on top of your breast on the skin, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be the right implant to put inside you if your tissues can't support it or your base width is too narrow or whatever. So they need to understand there's limitations. The aesthetic is not the only issue. It's also tissue parameters and things of that nature that need to be factored into the final decision.
Do you think that AI is ever going to replace all that, Bill? What do you guys think? What do you think?
No, I don't think it ever will, but I think that AI may be able to help you
put it all together.
Again, like all these things we're talking about, it's basically patient education at the end of the day. We've been talking about that. It's like the most important part of the process of breast augmentation. But there's lots of different tools out there, and whatever way you can best educate your patients is going to be helpful to you. So whatever you can do a better consult with and educate your patients, that's what we're talking about. So, AI might be able to help with that in some way. We'll see. I don't think it's ever going to replace the doctor-patient interaction with this, but
I agree.
All right. We're going to go on now to our newest segment. This is the scrub sink. We term this the scrub sink because, at the scrub sink, when you're there with your colleague, you got about like 3, 4, 5 minutes, or if you scrub like Dr. Rohrich, like 2 minutes. But you got a short amount of time to ask your questions and have your conversation and get the answers. So this is a scrub sink. We have an incredible expert for the scrub sink, Dr. Jerry Chidester. Jerry, how are you?
Hey, good. How's it going, Bill? Hey, Rod.
So Jerry is well known to many. Incredible plastic surgeon, great guy, lives in Salt Lake City, Utah. We've been asking him to do some snow dances because I'm supposed to go out there to ski in a month or something. So Jerry assured me that he can get it to snow. Not only that, but Jerry's got a big practice there. And I think one of the things you've really excelled in, Jerry, certainly has been participating in social media. And this segment is on, practicing breast surgery in 2026 in the social media era, which is very different than it was 25 years ago. Let's just start with you, Jerry. Like what's your kind of assessment of that whole topic, and where should we go to have a good discussion about this?
Yeah, I think I've been personally in practice now back here in Salt Lake City since 2018, so about 7-8 years. And even in that short period of time, we've seen how social media has truly exploded in terms of patient education, but even just more patient awareness, specifically as it relates to, I think, breast augmentation. In Salt Lake City, it's a very interesting environment because of the culture and the predominant religion here. Plastic surgery, not only is it one of the highest, per capita places in the country for plastic surgery, but it's something that's just not really widely spoken about. So it's this interesting phenomenon where social media has come along and really allowed people to voice their surgeries. Everyone has an opinion, obviously, but we've really seen an explosion of people being more open about it and sharing about their journeys, especially with breast augmentation. And so it's just really cool to see that change with me being here in 8 years. But you're right, it's so different from 25 years ago, where everyone was it's all referral, it's word-based, it's, who does your primary doctor say is the best plastic surgeon? And now everybody on social media is an expert in their field. And so it takes, I think, experts and board-certified surgeons like everybody on this panel here to help educate patients, really let them know the differences between different types of breast augmentation surgery.
So Jerry, have you found any techniques on social media that you found effective, for your patients specifically, or is it more is it more just people are able to kind of find you? What's the good parts and what are the challenges that you've identified in terms of social media currently?
Dancing helps. No, I'm just kidding. We're not dancing.
Yeah, I did the first Chiddy dance with him at the Plastic Surgery Channel. He got me to do the Chiddy dance. Oh my God.
It was amazing.
Well, yeah. Tell us more.
You want to do surgery on a hoverboard?
I think, we look at our websites, for example. I mean, befores and afters are always going to really help showcase our surgeries. But I think more than that, social media has gone to where it's live media, it's organic, it's authentic. And I think we'll see in 2026, the real word is going to be authentic, right? And so people sharing their journeys with plastic surgery. I mean, people are showing how they're recovering from breast augmentation surgery. We're interviewing patients and they're willing to be on screen, obviously with permission, with HIPAA and all that, but they're wanting to share their journey and their experience. And so people are hearing firsthand on social media at 2 a.m, they're scrolling TikTok or Instagram, and they're hearing what breast recovery surgery can be like. And so I think that has been the biggest part, is patients are really emotionally getting tied to these surgeries before they even step in for a consult with any of us as plastic surgeons. But I do think the challenges are, everybody again is an expert, right? And so one surgeon may say this is their preferred technique, another surgeon says this one. And so patients also can get confused and they don't know what's the best technique because everybody's claiming theirs is the best. And so I think for us as surgeons, again, it's really important to, we all have our own tools, right? Whether we're dual plane, above the muscle, in between the muscle, whatever we put the implant, we all have our own tools and things that work for our patients. But I think that's the biggest challenge, is really helping patients navigate that.
Jerry, I can't believe any plastic surgeons claim to be the best. Have you Rod, you ever seen that?
Never.
I mean, Rob and
Never.
Lewis, Lewis, I know, you and Jerry are probably neck and neck for social media posts per day, right?
Oh yeah, we got the whole spectrum covered. We got Dr. Social Media over there, Jerry, and then what's that here?
But Jerry, have you what about that? Have you seen any downsides or negatives or dangers? Is there any advice you could give to people?
Yeah, I mean, it can be a double-edged sword for social media because, patients are going to share good or bad, right? And you really have no control. And a lot of times, if you don't have permission, you can't talk or address that. And so when we put ourselves out there to help educate, right? Because I think there are a lot of non-plastic surgeons doing these similar surgeries and they're going to say whatever they want. So for us to maintain that ethical level, that high level of quality and education, but at the same time, there's really a lot of things you just can't combat. And so I think in the day, for us, I think it does raise our bar. And like Rob mentioned, in his preview thing, introducing him, he has that high standard of excellence. I think all of us do here. And I think we just have to maintain that. And whether the patient's going to post on social media or not, that's not why we do our best for every surgery, but we just always have to be at our best and always trying to improve. But for any surgeon, I would tell them, just be really careful of social media because it can truly be a double-edged sword.
You know what I like about what Jerry's doing is it's very authentic, it's real, and it's honest. I mean, whether you're dancing or doing whatever, you're talking to your patients are talking about their result. And I think that's what people want today. They want the realness and the authenticity of social media. And you're right, Bill, they want the journey too today, which is very different. And the only way you can do the journey is you got to talk about it on social media. And I think, Jerry, you do a great job with that. And it's edutainment too, like the Plastic Surgery Channel does so well, because you have to keep the audience and the viewer entertained while you're telling them what's possible and what's not. And I think that's very, very positive. If board certified plastic surgeons with real credibility, like everyone on this session is doing, I think that's very powerful. And Lou, I think you should do it. You should do it in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I'm much more interested in social media than I may sound, but I also know that a lot of word of mouth referrals are social media based, big time. There are many layers where patients communicate with each other that way. So we're all involved with it a lot more than we may think, even if we say we're not.
Yeah. Rob, you do quite a bit of social media. So what's your experience?
I mean, I would say I do a moderate amount. I'm definitely a Gen Xer. Like my partner here in LA, Ben Tale, he's like social media, like it's just like it's in his nature, and he's like he's just posting all the time, and he has a huge following. For me, it's more like pulling teeth. I really don't love doing it, so I do like what I have to. I have a social media team that helps me. My angle has always been I don't love doing a lot of personal stuff. I want it mostly to be surgical and educational. And what was a real problem for me, like on Instagram, I was getting shadow banned. I'm still shadow banned for like videos that show blurred nipples, but apparently that's really like distasteful compared to some of the other insane stuff that's on there. So it's a little frustrating. It's definitely a double-edged sword. And I think one of the things we have to deal with now is sort of like patients come in for a consult and you almost have to deprogram them before you can start giving them information, because they're coming in with a lot of misinformation, or I did my research and the research was, God knows who it was coming from. So a lot of my consults are first dispelling rumors or myths and then starting and explaining what the reality is. So I think social media is a good tool. I think it's very helpful for educating and kind of putting the word out, showing other people's experiences. I agree. Authenticity is huge. I mean, you can tell instantly if somebody's just doing performative stuff, if they're really the kind of surgeon that would, do fun stuff, and that you can tell. And if there's somebody's just faking it for an audience, I think it's pretty obvious. And I also think that the biggest issue is, like you don't want to alter your practices or cut corners or safety things because you're on camera or you're trying to get a certain shot. I think that's the temptation sometimes is, you're on film, so you're not going to do it necessarily the same way. You need to be consistent and do your surgeries how you do them and do your consults how you do them. And then, if it happens to be captured by the camera, that's fine.
Jerry, what do you think about the shadow banning you hear about? Is that still going on, or is it getting worse, or what should we know about that?
Yeah, I got really into this whole shadow banning thing for a while because it definitely is a real thing, like Rob was talking about. But I do think, as you looked how Instagram and Meta, they've changed some of their policies. I think they have become a little more lax on it. But I think for us, if you, like Rob, if your account is shadow banned, you can definitely appeal that. And I'm going to do some posting here in a couple of days to talk about an experiment I've been doing. So Instagram actually has different levels of meta verification you can pay for. And if you're using Instagram and you feel like you're getting shadow banned, this is going to sound weird, but as a business investment, you can pay more per month for your meta verification. But what I found over the last couple of months is you have direct access to talk to an Instagram rep at any time. So if you get shadow banned for some reason, you can contact them right away and they can potentially clear it for you. So they're essentially now asking you to pay to clear these things, which is a business move for them. But if you consider this part of your business, you may want to consider that. So anyway, I'll do some posts on that, but it's a real thing. I mean, shadow banning, I see in the plastic surgery community it happens. We did a research presentation and a paper on this specifically. We had it published talking about TikTok and banning. So it's a real thing, and it does affect us. And unfortunately, like Rob was also mentioning, there's a lot of content on there that's not coming from plastic surgeons, but it's material that's maybe directed at our kids or something. And it's not plastic surgery, and it's nudity, and that's not being banned at all. So it's just, I don't know how Instagram really addresses all of this. I think they look at plastic surgery as a really bad thing in terms of body dysmorphia, and it does affect us and what we can do. So again, I think it's really up to us. As much as we don't want to be on social media sometimes, we really have to try and educate as best as we can to help people know the reality of what we do.
Tell us about you were also like literally like the resident expert plastic surgeon on the Real Housewives of Utah, right? And what was that experience like? I think you're still, it's like, it was crazy, but yeah, I mean, Utah is like now, right, the #1 market, I think, for plastic surgery, right?
Right, it is.
But was that, I mean, is that an ongoing thing, or is that Must have been pretty wild.
No,
huh?
I mean, they've talked about it publicly. Some of them are my patients, so I'm not like an expert consultant on there by any means.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, I mean, the phenomenon is that, a lot of them have had plastic surgery, a majority of them on these shows, and so, but they're very open about it. And a lot of people, there's just this almost this cultish culture that's obsessed with Utah right now, with Real Housewives and the secret lives of Mormon wives. Because they're out there, they're being authentic. I mean, that's who they are, and you see how their culture and religion kind of blends in with their appearance and how they want to look. And so, yeah, I mean, having been a part of that peripherally, I see that firsthand. But I think it has a lot of positives to it. Again, I'm a very optimistic person, so I can say, hey, this is an opportunity for us to really share, how awesome plastic surgery can be in building confidence for people. But again, always being, conservative and ethical in everything that we do.
I think it's a real opportunity for every board-certified plastic surgeon to be on social media and do it honestly and ethically. And I think we need to do that because there are so many people, like all of you mentioned, that aren't. And they're really spelling, all these crazy things and talking about things that aren't real and are untrue. So, I think it's important that we're on there, but we do it in an honest and ethical way. And I think each of you are doing that. But we need to get on it.
Yeah. So Jerry, I got one last question for you. So when Dr. Rohrich was doing the dance with you, so would you rate his dancing like full throttle, half throttle, or quarter throttle?
Oh, that was full plus 20%. That was 120%.
Oh God. That was after you gave him some lessons, right?
I'm still surprised that he did it. I'm still, to this day, I'm shook. It was great.
It was a weak moment, but it was good.
All right. Well, listen, Jerry, thanks so much. That was really, really great insights and really, I think, very helpful. I think people will find this not only interesting, but really helpful to them and some of the things that they see in social media. We hope you'll come back on TBH sometime.
I love that. Thanks so much for having me. You guys are awesome. I love that you're really trying to tackle everything that no one wants to talk about. So yeah, I appreciate you guys.
Okay.
Right, you bet.
Keep it full throttle.
Thank you.
That's awesome stuff. Let's get to the second case of the day. Second case of the day is the technology of recovery. So this is kind of a cool topic. And this one is brought to us by CO2 Lift, which is actually a great technology for us to talk about, I think, first here. So I don't know how much everybody knows about this, but CO2 Lift Pro, which is like the professional version of CO2 Lift, it's a topical carboxy gel. And you can think of it as almost like providing local HBO therapy to your patient. It has many uses that we can get into. One of the great contributors to the Plastic Surgery Channel, the great Dr. Christine Hamori, we all know and love, she actually did a video on this with the Plastic Surgery Channel, which I had forgot about. But let's take a look at this because I think it's a good lead into our discussion.
I've been using CO2 Lift for probably a year and a half now. It's really been a successful product in my office, both the CO2 Lift V in the vaginal area as well as on the face. Patients love it. Post-operatively on a facelift, we're having people use the CO2 Lift as a mask because it really enhances oxygenation to the area. It's cooling. It's a very nice sensation. It doesn't smell in any way, and you really can see the results. And people can take it home. It's easy for them to apply. It's not complicated. It's very simple. And basically, you can use it anywhere. You can use it for so many purposes everywhere on the body, and it works very well. Works well intravaginally. There's a little vaginal applicator you can put in that helps for hydration and for dyspareunia, for pain with intercourse. And externally, it helps rejuvenate the majora, and then everywhere else in the body, cellulite, legs, everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, unbelievable. It's like cure-all.
No, it's amazing.
Ron, you've got experience with it.
Yeah, I've used it for almost 2 years on almost all my facelifts and rhinoplasties. It's like local hyperbaric oxygen, and because what you do is you just take this out of and you can mix it in a small bowl. I usually warm it up first, and then you apply it for 45 minutes, and it's amazing. It's like local hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And really, it's by the Bohr effect, you're displacing, the CO2 is displacing it so that oxygen rushes into the tissue. And of course, people like Dr. Hoyas have used it in bruised areas and the body and breast. So it's really, I think it's an incredible enhancer because everybody's talking about the post-op journey and how to make it better and smoother. And the CO2 is really an integral part of that. And I use it in all my faces and noses. And anytime there's any type of compromised tissue in a post-auricular area, I use it all the time. And it's easy to use. And a lot of people use it like before they go out to dinner, they'll freshen up. And it's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, and so the cost to the patient is what?
Oh, it's very minuscule. I actually include a box of 6 in all of my post-op therapy for facelifts and rhinoplasties. So it's minuscule. It's a few $100s. It's really nothing. And I think patients love it. And the great thing is they come back and they say, you know what? I want more of that because it made my skin feel and look so good. So I think it's great. And I think it's a great adjunct in breast surgery, especially in mastopexies where there's compromised skin. Anything you can do to enhance that area. And Dr. Hoyas is actually going to be publishing a study on its use in 3D body contouring, where he's actually enhanced recovery of skin that's been bruised or even has some partial ischemia.
All right, well, Rob and Lewis, I'm going to get to the CO2 lift contributor question of the day, and I want you guys to weigh in on this. So the question is, when you're performing breast implant surgery, especially in cases where there may be where the quality, say, the tissue is not great or there's some potential compromise, how are you guys thinking about ways to prepare the tissue before surgery? And this is like, so before surgery, and what tools and strategies have you done both preoperatively and postoperatively to optimize healing and the final result? So Rob, why don't you lead off on this one?
Well, in terms of preparing, there's not a ton I do in advance besides like high protein diet. I make sure they're not smoking for minimum 6 weeks before surgery. We sometimes elastin, reform and repair on the skin for a decent period of time before surgery. I think one critical thing in terms of preparing the skin when you're talking about bad outcomes, if you're dealing with a patient with large implants that's going to either explant or downsize significantly, I'll either deflate them ahead of time by about a month to 6 weeks, or I'll take the implants out under local anesthesia if they're silicone 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time to allow the tissues to shrink, thicken up, and be much more much safer and easier to work with. Afterwards, DMSO cream I use pretty frequently if there's any kind of duskiness to the nipples or the flaps at all. Hyperbaric oxygen sometimes. Lymphatic massage I think can be helpful if the patient has a lot of edema. I use Topifoam to compress on the sides. I think that helps with the skin as well. Bridget clips to take tension off. So there's a lot of maneuvers that we can do to sort of reduce the strain on the tissues, particularly at the T-junction at the bottom. And I think a lot of it's also just about proper surgical planning. You're not going to stick a really big implant in, particularly without maybe some kind of like resorbable like P4HB support, unless you think the tissues can handle it. If they can't handle it, don't depend on these other strategies to sort of mitigate the bad decision of putting in too large of an implant or poor tissue handling or excessive tension on your closure.
Any things you're doing before surgery for breast surgery patients or after?
Really not much before surgery. After surgery, I like to immobilize the sort of the construct. I do a lot of revision implant surgery. And I, like Rob said, I really steer clear of doing a lot of these procedures on people with a heavy smoking history, and that has to be a non-issue for a couple of months. And we talk about it a couple of times. I use Bridget clips in many patients. I like to put them in a foam tape dressing. There's nothing great technologically about that except to immobilize it. Another thing is soft tissue support in the implant pocket. I think is really important to help protect the skin from healing issues. So we really don't see that much of a problem, but take a series of steps and we steer clear of people that are who are poor candidates for what we're doing. To me, patient selection is probably more important than the technologies, although I remain very attentive and interested in ideas.
Rod, have you used, say, CO2 lift or anything else to preoperatively treat patients?
I've used it in a couple of facelifts. I've done, not in breast patients. I've used it in facelifts that have very, very thin skin, actinic damage, and the ones that were previous smokers. I agree, I don't operate on smokers. I don't like smokers, so I don't operate on them. But I think that anything you can do to enhance oxygenation locally works well. And then of course, it's all how you handle tissue intraoperatively, and then postoperatively, if there's an issue, you can use, I'll use nitropaste. I do hyperbaric in almost all my facelifts, and because it just enhances wound healing and the journey post-op. But I've not used it in breast patients. Have you?
Well, I'm working on it actually. Chelsea was just here, and we were talking, and so we're working on that. But I'm still a neophyte in terms of using CO2 lift. But I think there's definitely, HBO. We have we're lucky because we have an HBO office right across the hall from my office, and I do use that. Particularly, I tend to use it post-operatively, but haven't really delved into doing it pre-operatively. But I think there's some data there.
There is some data on that.
I know that, Medicare only has a couple things that is approved, but let me tell you that's the U.S., the government. Like, the government probably doesn't know what the docs know, and it works really well for post-operative wound healing. It's really phenomenal.
Yep. I agree.
All right, Lewis and Rob. So take a look at this list. I know you guys had, we talked about this. This is just some different things that we all, various ones of us are using. Rob, why don't you, I know you talked a little bit about DMSO. Why don't you talk about a couple of these things that you particularly are using, I know?
Sure. I like all the things on this list. So Exparel, I use pretty much every single abdominoplasty. I use Exparel, and then I'll offer Exparel for anybody who I think has maybe a low pain tolerance, or they're worried about constipation, or have a history of narcotic use or whatever. I think Exparel is a really great option. It's really good, especially for like a breast reduction or something where you can target the entire field and get it nicely numbed up. Topifoam I use routinely. I find especially the lateral chest gets pretty swollen after a lot of breast surgeries, and you use a Topifoam on the side. It gives you really nice compression, kind of helps to stabilize the breast. If you're doing a more complicated revision, you can do more of a almost like a complete 180 degree around the side of the breast to stabilize whatever repair you did. Lymphatic massage I use routinely on anybody who's had liposuction, abdominoplasty, J-plasma. I think it is really helpful, not just to make the patients more comfortable early after surgery, but to sort of reduce the edema, and it probably lowers the risk of infection and wound breakdown. Red light, I don't feel strongly about, but a lot of people have that at home already, so they ask, and I say as long as there's not excessive heat production, it's not a problem. DMSO I started using a few years ago, or more than a few years ago. I think Simeon Wall was the one that actually keyed me in on that one. I used to use nitropaste, and I think DMSO is probably, if anything, more effective, and it smells really nice. Patients, it's very easy for them to use. You don't have to worry about maybe the cardiac stuff as much as with nitropaste. And then patient education. Obviously that's again, leading them in proper nutrition, proper, activity levels, avoiding smoking, getting off any kind of weight loss medications, all that stuff, and then sort of what to expect. I think expectations are important too. The patients need to know, what level of recovery they have, so they can prepare the home properly and have the resources and the support they need, or the all that kind of stuff. So I think all these things are super important.
Yeah. Lewis, any thing to add to any of that?
No, I'm a huge fan of Exparel, particularly with abdominoplasty, to help with early ambulation, decrease narcotic intake, occasionally in breast cases, but not that often. I think patient education is by far the most important thing, so the patients know what to expect and what the recovery process is.
All right, boys, let's sew it up. So, we've got, Rod, we've got some great questions for this sewed up. So let's start, Cam, with actually question number one. Lewis, I'm gonna have you address this. So what do you do for inframemory scar, or it could be transaxillary? I know you do both, so you can comment well on either one. But what do you do in the postoperative period? Any kind of scar therapy, or what's your scar therapy routine?
So our routine is, I actually still use Dermabond Perineo on inframammary incisions, and I'm really just trying to protect the incision from any traumatic issues with bra support. I tend to use underwire bras to help stabilize implant shaping and positioning. After that, I like to use Skinuva as a topical scar cream, beginning at somewhere around a month. We'll continue that for usually about 6 months. That's pretty much it. If there's usually just for a straight breast aug, the inframammary incision, it doesn't really require any additional attention. We occasionally see issues with mastopexy scars every now and then, which might require some injections, but not very often. So I don't routinely use lasers. If so, I refer to a friend who has a special interest in lasers.
Rob, what's your scar therapy routine?
I mean, if you're just doing like a primary aug with an inframammary incision, I mean, if you do proper multi-layer closure and don't overstress the tissue with too big of an implant, and I use, again, reinforcement resorbable mesh in a lot of cases, there's not going to be much tension on that closure at all. So I generally don't worry about it much. I put a, proxy strip on it early after surgery. I might redo it after a week. And then after that, maybe biocorneum twice a day for 3 or 4 months. And Louis, did you say you do use an underwire bra? After breast surgery? Oh, see, I kind of the opposite.
Quite a bit.
I don't do a wire because I don't want anything stiff rubbing on my scar, so I just have them in a soft bra. But honestly, that scar, unless somebody has really bad genetics, you're probably going to get a really nice result.
Right.
Yeah, Rod, what do you do for your scar therapy?
No, I agree. I usually just use a layered closure, intradermal, Dermabond. I'll leave that on for, as long as it will stay on, because it's like a 5 or 6 foot nylon, and then I won't do hardly anything, a moisturizing cream, but if I see it elevated, I'll put in a silicone or a silicone gel sheet for 3 to 6 months. But usually it's so almost imperceptible if properly placed, like all you guys mentioned, and lack of tension. How about you, Bill? What do you do?
I use topical silicone gel, and we actually, we had used biocorneum for a long time and Silogen. But actually, we've switched to Skinuva, and just because I think the science of Skinuva is superior. There's some additional things in Skinuva that aren't in other topical silicone gels, and so it's actually been a very, very good product for us. So, all right. So we've got. We're going to do the question 4, but just as an introduction, this is Dr. Barrett, who Rod. I mean, I think. We've used a lot of Dr. Barrett's videos. He's actually been very good. He has some very good videos, and our experts have generally liked all the stuff he's done. But this is a video, he's talking about recovery, and then you guys are going to react to it. So let's run the video.
The other thing is very precise pocket dissection. Only dissect what you need to do, because if you overdo that, you're going to have a lot more pain. If you go to somebody who really knows what they're doing, you're going to recover much faster, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't get your implants done during summer and be right back out on the beach enjoying some sunshine. No getting in water until 6 weeks out.
Okay, Rob, what do you think about the things he shared?
I mean, I think precise pocket dissection is super important, and then that's going to reduce pain and recovery, obviously. In terms of, like activity level, I think it's going to depend on how extensive, if it's a primary aug versus like a complex revision or something, in terms of what you let people back to. I usually let them back in water sooner than 6 weeks. Usually, as long as things are well healed up, but 3 weeks, I think it's fine. But keep the incisions dry for 48 hours. Yeah, I mean, but nothing really seemed, everything seemed pretty standard, straightforward, what he had to say.
It was kind of, I think Dr. Barrett and you, Rob, because Rob, we had a video of Rob's, and actually these guys were like, they hated every video we're showing, and then they got to Rob Cohen's, and they're like, I love that one. So I think you, Dr. Barrett, and Rob Cohen had the highest TBH promoter score, net promoter score. So, Louis, I know where you stand on this. I don't want to ask you the same question, but one thing he was talking about was, basically the preciseness of the surgery, minimal trauma, and I think one of the things I would say that you're super well known for is you've really have shown. I mean, just share with people the analogy to where you went through with transaxillary augmentation, which used to be, blunt blind, kind of imprecise dissection, and you've taken it to the next level. But obviously you've probably seen some other benefits to doing that.
Well, so we live in an interesting time where blunt blind is being popularized again and labeled as predictable. And we've been there and done that. With the transaxillary approach specifically, and specifically in a dual plane with endoscopic assistance, actually the operation is on the pec major muscle. It's not operating on the breast. It's not disrupting breast anatomy, anything about the breast at all. We're operating underneath it. And then when we come through the muscle, we're going right on top of the muscle if we're going to lower the inframammary fold. So it's curious the way these terms are used about preserving different elements of breast function. And if you're going to be on top of the muscle or even intraglandular, leaving a small film posteriorly and using blunt blind technique, to me, it's very difficult to argue that that's superior in any way, short-term or long-term. But my thinking on that really comes from doing the transaxillary approach for, almost 30 years now. But we all have different ways of thinking about it, and I'm left-handed. But to me, in terms of the breast itself, this is very minimally invasive to the breast itself. We're very invasive to the pec major, but we're good at getting people through that. And I hope the recovery of my patients will be as fast as Dr. Barrett talks. That was, I enjoyed the video.
Yeah.
And the narration.
So, Louis, the real question people want to know is, when do you let your patients go back horseback riding? You're living in Fort Worth. So is that why you've always advocated the Transax Aug? I mean, you're in ranch country, man.
Yeah, you know me better than that. I'm a little more protective of that operation than that. They're not getting right back to it.
Still 3-4 weeks? Yeah.
Okay.
Right, yeah, for horseback, for horse activities. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's well said, Louis.
Question, though.
That's good. Well said. I think you've really contributed immensely to that field. So you, out of anybody, can probably comment best about that. All right. So we have a last one. This has nothing to do with the technology recovery. It's just we've actually had this question submitted multiple times, and so I just felt like we need to kind of address it because people are asking this question. So let's do number 3, Cam. This is about the Motiva implant. It says, do Motiva implants have less capsular contracture? And I want both of you guys to address this. So Louis, you keep the floor, or you keep lead off?
Here's what I would say. As one of the investigators, as you were, Bill, for the study, it's hard to say, to answer the question, because we just don't see in primary breast dogs capsular contracture being a common issue at all. So I need more information before I would just say that on a blanket basis, that any implant decreases capsular contracture. To me, I think it's more an issue of technique, surgical technique, precision, visualization, control of any sort of bleeding and those sorts of things, precise control of the dimensions of the pocket. These are the things, minimizing blunt dissection, or how to minimize the risk of capsular contracture, in my view. So to me, it's more technique and irrigation of the pocket more than one company's implant versus another.
Rob?
Well said.
Yeah, I kind of rolled my eyes when I read that, because it's like same thing. I think it has less to do with the implant. Your capsular contracture rates, if you're doing things properly, should be probably under 1%, hopefully. There's this one surgeon, I heard he's like number 1 in the world or whatever, came up with this 14-point plan that you can do to kind of help with minimizing capsular contracture rates. So I think that's a good idea. Everything he says must be taken as gospel, but no, in all seriousness, that's it. I think it's how you handle the implant, how you handle the pocket, and how you handle the tissues. That's where you're setting yourself up, not smooth versus texture versus microtexture or whatever.
Yeah, and it's funny because history does repeat itself. Because if you go back 25 years ago, we were talking about the same thing. It's just a different implant. So it was like the textured anatomic implants or different textures, they're causing less capsular contracture. And I think what's been borne out over time is that exactly what you guys said, that it's really surgical technique that's been shown. And actually there's a study that I was part of with Anant Diva that they just was published in PRS in December. And that's exactly what it showed. And in fact, it showed that all the things you guys just talked about, technique, all those things that we've been educating and advocating for many years were the only things that were correlated with lower contraction rates. And in fact, the type implant, the surface texture of the implant did not correlate at all. So I think you guys hit the nail on the head.
Yep, I agree.
All right, well, listen, that's some great stuff. Now we're going to move on to our rest of the story, and this is the absolute best show summary ever. It's even better than McAfee Rod. It's time for the RJR Op Report.
Well, thanks so much. And we want to thank all our sponsors who made TBH possible. Our great friends at Allergan, Mentor, and the CO2 Lift, which has been a new sponsor. We thank them so much. So today, the Op Report is really the 3 S's of smart, aesthetic decision-making in breast surgery. It's simulators, it's social media, and smart recovery. So let's start with simulators. They support understanding, but they don't substitute for surgical expertise or the real anatomy, as we've discussed. And number 2, the social media haze and phrase is that it shows inspiration, but not always reality. So smart decisions come from experience and expertise, not likes alone. And last, but perhaps even the most important, is smart recovery solutions. They support healing, and success is still dependent upon precise planning, patience, and that true partnership with the patient in the recovery process. So here's the real takeaway. Technology is very powerful, but it's only as good as the hands and the judgment behind it. Use simulators to communicate, not to promise. Use social media for education, not comparison. And above all, use recovery tools to support healing and not replace common sense. Because great outcomes aren't built on trends, they're built on trust and expertise. And that's your Op Report, Bill.
That was a full throttle show indeed. I want to thank our 3 experts, Dr. Strock, Dr. Cohen, Dr. Chidester. Really great insights, y'all, and great discussion. So thank you so much. Thanks to the Media PSC team for all they do to make this show happen. Thanks to all of you in the audience. Make sure to keep clicking the like button, subscribe. Make sure to send us all your questions and topics that you want to hear about in the future. Don't miss the next episode of TBH Breast Implants coming to you soon, and we'll see you all very full throttle.